revenue application for 1 year, as which is for 22-23, as directed by the courts. Mr. Mavuso, if you can present, but can I kindly guide that because the electricity subcommittee only recommends to the ER, let's be careful, colleagues, in talking to the numbers in respect of our decision. Yes, we can talk to the numbers that we applied for, those are public numbers, but in respect of the numbers as per our decision, if you can be careful, please, not to touch the numbers, because those numbers can only really be communicated once they've been approved by the energy regulator after appropriate consultations, including consulting the applicant. So I'd like to give it over to you, Mr. Mavuso, and your team, and you can take us through the presentation, please. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just give an intro in terms of the approach. Brian will kick off with the introduction and the overview of the process that you are involved in. Then after that, Tilly will talk to the decision itself. And then after that, Tilly will also guide us in terms of the different speakers which will take the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mavuso. Mr. Stratler.
Thanks, Chairperson. Again, happy Valentine's to all the beautiful ladies in the room. Chairperson, the application that we're talking to today is the application received from Eskom in June 2021. This application, when considered by NERSA rejected the application on the basis that we did not have a methodology to deal with that application. However, Eskom then took the matter to court, and the courts directed that at least for the first year, because the application was for 3 years, the court directed that for the first year of the application, NERSA needs to make a decision by the 24th of February, and that's where we find ourselves today, Chairperson. The application from Eskom is about 20.1%, 20.5%, and then we have actually taken the matter through a consultation process, firstly through publication of the application, and also through public hearings that were held virtually, but one was held live in Midrand, Chairperson. Chairperson, I know that I don't want to get into the details, but just to direct members to the decision. I know Tilly will be talking to that, but without talking the numbers, there are 3 critical tables in the decision. The first table, Chairperson, shows that what we are proposing without consideration of the approved RCA and its implementation. That is the first one. The second one is similar to the first one, but because the first one, in the way that Eskom had applied, they had included the RCA that had been approved in the overall amount. So the second one just takes out that RCA, so that when we compare the amount that we are proposing, is comparing apples with apples. And then the third table, Chairperson, is the one where we are then actually then also now including the implementation of the RCA that has already been approved. So that is the decision in terms of the numbers. I will not get into the numbers, but as Mr. Mavuso in his introduction had said, Tilly will guide us as to who will be the speakers. And I think we will just do the big chunks, starting obviously, I think the biggest one was the RAP. I will ask Tilly to then guide the team to go through as we had already planned, Tilly, if you can do it in that way, and then we can then obviously give it to the members. But again, I must emphasize what Mr. Gumede has said. Colleagues, numbers are a no-no, except the numbers that have already been in public domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schocho, and good morning to the members and everyone. As you indicated, we've got major drivers of the decision, and the first one is REB, which will be led by Thabo Chabalala, and followed by the IPPs, which will be led by Dr. Kasheka, and it will also be Dr. Kasheka will be followed by Umaria, and then primary energy, which will be done by Shumani. In that order, colleagues, can we give the reasoning to the adjustments that we have made? Thank you.
Sorry, Chairperson. May I make a suggestion, an amendment to the way that Tilly maybe made it? That we deal with the REP and logically then deal with the related number, which is the WACC, so that it makes logic.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I think that would be more proper.
Agreed.
And then, of course, logically, we should then deal with depreciation immediately after that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair and colleagues. Thank you, Chairperson. With regards to the RAB, Eskom applied for a closing balance of just over 1.3 trillion, and we are actually recommending a closing balance in line with the REP summary table. So effectively, the adjustments will mainly affect the returns and depreciation to be earned. So with regards to these adjustments I've alluded to, these have been made in line with the following items. It's actually in line with the structure of the application. That would be your depreciated replacement cost of fixed assets. This is the one item that accounts for the majority of this closing balance, sitting at around 71% odd, followed by completed assets and work under construction at 14% and 9% respectively. And then the other components like working capital, your asset purchases, and assets funded by customers, those account for collectively for 6%. So I'm going to briefly touch on the major ticket item, which is your depreciated replacement cost, as I've indicated, accounting for 71%. So maybe just a bit of perspective, in calculating this DRC, you need to get to your replacement cost new amount and then make various adjustments to get the DRC. So in calculating this DRC, Eskom determined the RCN through the application of the cost approach methodology, which included the identification of this replacement cost, which was then adjusted for physical and functional obsolescence. So NERSA, on the other hand,
Mr. Chabalala, sorry to interject. If you don't mind, let's maybe not use. I know you've introduced DRC, and then we are then using. But if you're going to introduce a new term, define it first, RCN, what it is, and then use it. But if you can, let's not use the TLAs, those three-letter acronyms, so that at least everybody in the meeting can then understand what we are talking about. Apologies for interjection. Thanks.
Noted, Chair. So the DRC would be your depreciated replacement cost. DRC, yes. So as I was saying, while NERSA, the approach we took then to independently verify this Eskom REP would be to say that we use the overnight cost to capacity approach, which is then in line actually with the valuation that was undertaken in 2016 by Eskom, which we felt was a bit more comparable or more of an apples to apples comparison. So it should be noted at this point that with the approach we took, we assume the plants to be at its complete state when we value them as NERSA. So this approach actually seeks to ensure that any past inefficiencies that have been experienced previously, including any expenditure mismanagement, any form of alleged corruptions or any efficiencies, those balances have not been allowed to creep into the rep balance, and then this is then how we then get to decide to be making some of those adjustments we've made to the RIP. So lastly on this one, Chair, I just want to point out that over and above the physical, the technical obsolescence and the depreciation, there's been some further adjustments that have been made to this rep balance. These include the removal of inoperable units and plant performance. I think I'd like to drop it there, Chair, for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't you want to expand a little bit on the principles? I know you've mentioned some of it, but at high level in terms of the 85%, or the principle side, not the outcomes, but at least the principles as you've outlined in the RFT. Is it possible to expand a little bit on it?
Okay. Those are fairly self-explanatory. So what we do is that any units that are forecast to not partake in the production or the generation in that particular application year, those units have then been explicitly removed from the rep balance. But the one that needs a bit of elaborating would be the adjustment on the side of performance of the plants per se. So how it works is to say that because we are valuing Eskom's regulatory asset base using a modern equivalent valuation approach, we are saying that we are expecting that Eskom's plants should be performing at the level similar or close to its modern counterparts. So international standards indicate that, so in valuing this performance, the one measure we target would be your EAF. What's the full term for EAF?
Energy availability.
Energy available. Thank you for that, Chair. So in measuring Eskom's plant performance, we look to the energy availability factors. So international standards, or what is deemed acceptable for your modern plants, is sitting actually at 85%. So because we are valuing this Eskom rep at this modern values, so to speak, we are then saying that we are expecting Eskom's plants to be performing at those international standards, being your 85%. So what we then did now is to say that Eskom has provided us with its forecast EAF over the period of the MYPD5, so which is a forecast. But in the past, we do know that we've had issues whereby these targets have actually been a bit on the ambitious side of things. So what we then did was to say that let's look at current actual EAF performance to say that what sort of performance the plant is underperforming. As a result, we then make an adjustment to the RAB to end. Percent.
Thank you. Then are you going to talk to depreciation now? We're going to talk to WACC. Mr. Ntake?
I think I can.
Sorry. Sorry, sir.
Thanks, Brian. I think I was just going to indicate that on depreciation, so I hadn't mentioned this, but so in order to get to depreciation, so there are two elements. That would be that closing a regulatory asset-based value that you need. And then the second aspect to it would be the denominator being your asset useful lives. So in terms of the numerator, I'll speak to first, and I've just extensively touched on it in terms of how that numerator would then differ, in terms of Eskom's numerator would then differ from NERSA's numerator based on adjustments that I've just explained. So the second element to it is that useful lives. So what we then did was that in order to get to our depreciation values, we have actually satisfied ourselves that the useful lives as presented by Eskom were actually satisfactory. In fact, in undertaking the revaluation exercise, the consultants that have been engaged by Eskom have actually satisfied themselves in terms of the approach that was taken to revisit these sort of useful lives. But even from our end, when looking at the comparison between inception date of these plans to date versus the sort of revised useful lives that Eskom has, one should be pointed out that there is no major alarming sort of differences between those useful lives. But yeah, we then use the same base in terms of the useful lives to calculate the depreciation, and that's how we got to making the adjustment. But the adjustments are mainly as a result of the differing replacement cost new values that were calculated as per Eskom versus as were calculated by NERSA. I'd like to leave it there for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Maybe, Thabo, just to complete that picture, did you adjust for any environmental pressures to actually close any of the plants earlier in terms of the useful life?
No, we did not, Chair.
All right. No, thank you. Okay, please continue, Sinta, again, in the order that you wanted to do things.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next one will be the return, which will be taken by Thavisa.
return on assets, or a reasonable return on assets. 3 scenarios have been calculated. This is shown in table 53 of the document. And then we've used the ESCOM calculated full work. And then the second scenario talks to the proposed work as indicated in table 53. And then, as I indicated earlier on, that ESCOM had applied for a negative return. The recommendation is that ESCOM should get a positive return in order for it to better its financial performance. And then considering that as much as a positive return, ESCOM will still not be able to pay its debt, but it is recommended and also encouraged that ESCOM should negotiate its debt and also ensure that it should just negotiate its debt so that it can also renegotiate the debt and better manage its debt going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Zindakele, please just continue. I won't interject. Or try not to.
Thank you, Chairperson. We will proceed. Let's now move to IPPs.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues and members. Regarding IPPs, ESCOM initially, okay, let me just direct members to the page. The page it will be page 81, sorry, table 81, page 115. That is the table showing the amount applied for by ESCOM and the revised figures which ESCOM made during the public hearing process. And then we also indicate in that table the adjustments that were made on various line items for section 34 RE and non-RE IPP programs. The biggest driver for the change was on the assumptions made for the commercial operation dates. Because So there are changes that have happened in terms of the load